So it's the start of the next episode. And if you didn't know better, you'd think we went backwards 4 episodes. But I've got the front end all taken back apart. I've got to paint that whole pile of brackets. I've already started painting. I was going to paint the back side of the fenders and the core support, which is over there. Probably the back side of the stone guard, throw something on the back side of his hood. And then pull the doors back off and start stringing some wiring on the inside of this. Get some things plugged back in. It's July 2nd. I've got today off of work, but I have a volleyball tournament for my daughter that I'm going to. I think she plays at 2 or 3. So try to get out here halfway early and get a little bit done before I go to that. The only thing I've really done of any note is I've got my seat brackets finally done. They took longer than I thought they should have, but that's how things go sometimes, these projects. I'll try to get a shot when I've got them out. I mean, there's really not much to them. It's not going to be a lot of help to most people unless they're doing the Crown Vic floor and using late model Chevy truck seats. I think it's a 13. But the one thing that was kind of neat is the seats that came with, these seats weren't in an accident, but the seat belts that came with the seats were, and they had the recoil units have both blown. So I just got looking at the Crown Vic seat belts. That's the, not the middle one, but the 2 for the seats are the Crown Vic. I basically just took out the GM ones and the Crown Vic ones bolted right in there. And it looks like it's gonna, I've already had them bolted in the seat and got them out right now. And then of course, I know if you watched River City, he put his shoulder here, and that's a nice sturdy piece. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll mount the shoulder strap there and then put the recoil unit in. Looks like it's gonna tuck in nicely down behind there. So that shouldn't be too bad. And then I wanna get the seat belts done and then start looking at putting some wiring back in it. Seat mounts. Just went down to the original Crown Vic seat mounting locations and made a little frame, and this center console bolts on the 2 inside bolts for the seats. So it was a little tricky, but I got it done. I do have it mounted on a little bit of an angle compared to how they were in the original Chevy truck, but I thought that was the most comfortable. We're out in my scrap metal pile. This deer is out in this bean field almost every time I'm working on my truck. And then usually these great big, I don't even know what they are, these big birds. Hopefully they're showed up. They're here every time also. And I'm out here making noise. Oh, I think the deer heard me talking and it just scooted back in the woods. Generally I'll be out here making noise and they don't even care. Yeah, alright, that's probably enough wildlife for one video. These are the B-pillars out of the Vic. And again, I realize that I have a distinct advantage because I have a good sized barn and I also live out in the country and I have good neighbors, so I can have stuff piled around and I don't get any grief. But I've hung on to these, and this is where the seatbelt mounts right here. And I think what I'm going to do, it looks like these are intended to mount on an angle. It's pretty thick steel here. So I'm going to chop this out and I think I'm going to mark a line on here that's level. This is kind of level with the rocker, and try to mount that on the same angle. I don't know if that's important or not, but since I have that reference, I'm going to go ahead and mount it in the same orientation. Of course, one of these is the passenger side and one's the driver's side, so I have to keep those straight. But yeah, I kept these around for that right there. That's kind of handy. In the event of an accident or if you need service. So I wonder what they'd say if I just carried this piece in there and said, I need some service. So it's July 6th. I've actually had this whole week off of work, but it's July 4th week, so there's been parties to go to, fireworks to see, volleyball tournament to finish up. But I have been able to get out here. I was out here yesterday. And I know there's kind of 2 schools of thoughts on the wiring. You know, take your time and do it all and zip tie it all up, or just kind of throw the harness at it and see if it runs. I went ahead at least the engine bay, I've went ahead and kind of taken care of that, with the exception where the lights are. Most of these look like I'm going to have to add some length in because of the way I routed my wires. I didn't, you know, with putting it up here, the wires aren't quite long enough to reach, but that's okay. That's not too bad of a job. So I've kind of buttoned this up, working on in here now. And I think I'm going to kind of do the same thing in here. On most of it, I'm going to go ahead and take the time, and I've got my fuse box mounted here, and then it comes up over, probably going to take my word for it, comes up over where I cut that original dash, and it's just long enough to that big plug to snake back down. I don't know about the other plug yet. I haven't had that up in here. I'm hoping that works out. I'm not going to button all this up, but I think I'm going to take the time and do the steering column and go ahead and zip tie that up, and some of the other stuff. Some of it I'm going to leave, and then basically I'm going to use the first approach I talked about with a third harness. Just kind of stick it in there and see if it'll start and kind of get it back running. I did all the work to mount my lighting control module nice and neat there. And the wires are about 2 inches short, so I'm going to have to move that over and down. But stuff like that happens on a build like this. So if I have a problem up here and have to get back into the wiring for whatever reason, I'm sure I'll be cursing myself for taking this option. But at the same time, there was just so many wires, and that way I figured I wouldn't miss anything. So yeah, I'm kind of half thinking the goal for today might to see if it'll start. I don't know if we got anything going yet tonight, but it'd be nice to kind of start it up, hear it run, or at least find out I've done something wrong and I've got troubleshooting to do. One of the two scenarios. Alright, it runs. The next step is to fix up that wiring for that last wiring harness. I really didn't put that in correctly. Put that in, take it for a test drive. See you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.